When the majority of the people hear the name Chin Gigante, a vision of a guy in a bathrobe comes to mind. However, the associated thoughts are usually ones of leadership and power. To say Chin ruled with an iron fist is an understatement. History has shown he led his family with total and absolute authority, and can arguably be viewed as one of the most tyrannical bosses in the history of the mob. As a former boxer, Chin was well versed in identifying patterns, defensive tendencies, strengths and weaknesses, the ability to predict moves, exploit vulnerabilities, and more crucially, counter with a strategic game plan. So when he transitioned from fighter to a life in the mob, he took that knowledge with him and absolutely made good use of it. His earlier years depict arrest for fencing stolen goods, possession of a weapon, auto theft, arson, gambling, bookmaking, etc. And in 1959, he was arrested alongside Vito Genovese for heroin trafficking and received a 7-year sentence, of which he served 5. And it was following his time spent in prison that Chin developed his game plan, which was to avoid going back to prison at all costs. He was schooled by mentors such as Vito Genovese and Benny Squint Lombardo, both bosses in their own right, and men who possessed the ability to shield their true leadership roles. Benny Squint, in particular, had an intense desire for secrecy and used a string of front bosses to not only confuse law enforcement, but to avoid their scrutiny. Chin, being a good student, would emulate these same practices during his time as a boss. When Lombardo decided to retire to Florida in 1981, he chose Chin as his successor. And one of the first acts was place Fat Tony Salerno in a front boss position, a strategic move that proved to confuse law enforcement, who believed Salerno was actually running the family. Enter Chin's choice of attire, the iconic bathrobe, and at times paired with pajamas as well. If you think about it, he was living 3 separate lives simultaneously. One as boss of a family, another playing a crazy act, and lastly, a family man with his personal family. Most people have a hard enough time dealing with the life that they lead, let alone 2 additional ones. As a precaution, and to further insulate himself, he implemented a rule, one which carried the penalty of death, where his name was never to be mentioned, but instead, any reference to him would be by touching one's chin. Important to note, this rule didn't only apply to his family, but to all the other families as well. In essence, he was dictating policy to 4 sitting bosses and their family members too. Throughout the years, Chin not only made life and death decisions in his own family, but at times encouraged other families to take actions to his liking. As a commission member, Chin proved to be a principal decision maker, and naturally, the majority of those decisions benefited him and his family. While researching, time and time again, I've come across examples of Chin's dominance. What I've always found interesting is that during my time as a member, Chin had already passed away, yet I still noticed when guys spoke of him, they continued to obey his edict by touching their chin instead of uttering his name. One historical event which highlights Chin's puppet master technique was the unsanctioned hit on Gambino boss Paul Castellano. First and foremost, Chin, for the most part, is someone who is recognized as a stickler for the rules. Killing a sitting boss without commission approval was chief among them. It's apparent that Chin viewed John Gotti as the new generation of wise guys. Many viewers have pointed out the fact that Chin also took place in an attempted hit on a sitting boss. While this may be true, unlike Gotti, Chin was following orders, and the true culprit of breaking the rules was Vito Genovese. Had Chin succeeded, he wouldn't be the person claiming the throne. That would be Genovese. So while I understand the comparison, I disagree with the theory that Chin bared the same sins as Gotti. I've mentioned this in the past. One of the key reasons why Chin was incensed by the killing of Paul Castellano was, as a boss, he didn't want any copycat acts. Putting aside the rules, Chin's intent on punishing Gotti was to send a loud and clear message. One being, this is what happens if you think you could hit a boss and get away with it. A repercussion that doubled their self-preservation. Two bosses on the Chin's puppet strings were Vicamuso and Gaspipe Casso, arguably two of the most ruthless bosses in mob history. Nevertheless, Chin had them running around trying to kill Gotti and anyone close to him. Had Chin used members of his own family, it wouldn't be viewed as anything unusually spectacular. But the fact that he dictated to the bosses of another family says something in itself. He basically sent them on a mission while he sat back and watched how it all played out. Vic and Gas proved that they had no regard for anyone. They killed or had a person killed in the blink of an eye. But when it came to Chin, they respected him, followed his lead, and carried out his orders. Fortunately for Gotti, he proved to be a much harder target than was expected. There came a point in time when, due to arrests and law enforcement becoming aware of the plot to kill Gotti, that all efforts were called off. And as I've stated in the beginning of the video, Chin knew how to counter with strategical game plans. If you haven't liked this video yet, please do, as it helps with YouTube's algorithm. And if you'd like to show your appreciation for videos like this, or help me to continue making them, you can do that by donating with the Super Thanks icon down below, or through the PayPal Cash App links in the video's description. Gotti now had to be accepted as a fellow boss, and would be in Chin's presence during commission meetings. Let's discuss those puppets who are considered voluntary in nature, ones consciously willing to be controlled, versus involuntary ones, which are puppets who are being manipulated automatically without conscious thoughts. Gotti represented the latter, as his character would never allow him to be Chin's puppet voluntarily. However, he was a puppet nonetheless. During crucial commission votes, such as anointing Vic Arena as the official Colombo boss, a strategic move Gotti attempted to possess the ability to outvote Chin was a monumental failure. So despite Gotti not being an actual puppet of Chin, he became an involuntary one because till the end, Chin pulled the strings and called the shots.